Hi guys, today we are going to look at 7.3.3. I'm going to explain it. I'm going to annotate one of the sources and help you guys understand how to answer that question. All right guys, so we are looking at your work page right here. And so we're going to look at that primary source. So in this assignment, the purpose will be you will learn more about Adolf Hitler's ideas for Germany. So I'm going to read this and you can follow along as I read. After his attempt to seize power in Munich failed in 1923, Adolf Hitler was arrested and put in jail. While serving time in Landsberg prison, he wrote an autobiography entitled Mein Kampf. Remember, an autobiography is he's writing about his life. And Mein Kampf is translated to My Struggle. In his book, Hitler explained how his worldview was formed, especially about Jews in Europe. Hitler also outlined his plan for Germany. In the following section, Hitler described how he will get his message out to the German people by using propaganda, as in the Oath to Hitler, a speech given by Rudolf Hess. Hitler believed he could unite Germans behind his ideas. So we're going to look at the annotation checklist if you would like. It is supplied to you guys. So remember in articles to tag, so title, author, genre, what is the information. Try to do it in a different color so you know where your information is. Turn the title into a question if you need to. Number the paragraphs and chunk it if you need to. Scan the text and circle unknown words. Identify main ideas by highlighting them and supporting details by underlining them, and add some stuff in the margin. So like comments, maybe question marks, that kind of stuff. So we're going to look, again, if you want it read to you beforehand, you can click this button and it will, and just click the immersive reader option, or you can follow along with me. So I clicked the blue link and I am at our assignment. So here we go. Source one, it's a primary source. So this means it's a first person account. It's an excerpt from Mein Kampf, means it's a chunk of the book or a chunk of it by Adolf Hitler, translated by Ralph Manheim in 1943. The function of propaganda does not lie in the scientific training of the individual, but in calling the masses' attention to certain facts, processes, necessities, etc., whose significance is thus for the first time placed within their field of vision. So I know he's talking about propaganda here. I'm going to analyze what exactly he's talking about when it comes to propaganda in the comments. So the function of propaganda, I know propaganda is like advertising. So but it can also mean more. So it can also be more than billboards, that kind of stuff. So propaganda does not lie in the scientific training of the individual. I don't know exactly what he means by that. Does not lie in the scientific training of the individual. So it's not it's not just one person dealing or that will absorb it, I'm believing, but in calling the masses' attention to certain facts. So it's not just for one person to see, but for all the people to see, and certain facts. Now, is facts really facts, or is it just their opinion? So facts, processes, necessities. So like what's going on, how they believe, what they need to know, etc. Whose significance is thus for the first time placed within their field of vision. So he's saying that propaganda is not just for one person; it is for the whole group, everybody seeing it, and it's not just held by one person. All propaganda must be popular, and its intellectual level must be adjusted to the most limited intelligence among those it is addressed to. So it is saying that it must go out to everybody, and it needs to be at a level that everybody can understand it. So it can't be where, a fourth or fifth grader couldn't understand it. It has to be something that everybody can understand. Consequently, or off, well, let's read this out. Consequently, the greater the mass it is intended to reach, the lower its purely intellectual level will have to be. I'm going to agree with that. Like, if you want to reach everybody's idea, the greater the mass, so the larger the group of people you want to reach, the lower the level needs to be. Absolutely. I mean, as a teacher, that's the same thing. I can't be teaching at a 13th grade level when I'm not teaching that. Like, that's not the level of my kids. So I have to go down to the level. I agree with that statement. But if, as in propaganda for sticking out a war, the aim is to influence a whole people, we must avoid excessive intellectual demands on our public, and too much caution cannot be extended in this direction. So just, you got to keep it dumbed down, is what he's saying. The more modest its intellectual weight, the more exclusively it takes into consideration the emotions of the masses, the more effective it will be. So if they keep it at a level that everybody can understand and that they can consider, it will be more effective. It will reach more people, and more people will believe in it. And this is the best proof of the soundness or unsoundness of a propaganda campaign, not the success of pleasing a few scholars. So he's saying, instead of reaching just a few elite people, smart people, because scholars are like, our professors in, universities, and now and analyzers of the economy, that kind of stuff. So instead of just reaching them, they need to reach they need to reach all of the other people that that aren't as intellectually sound as them. The art of propaganda lies, effective. I like this word effective, so I'm going to highlight this word effective. And scholar, I'm going to add scholar. So scholar is really smart people. Okay, the art of propaganda lies in understanding the emotional ideas of the people and finding, through a psychologically correct form, the way to get the people's attention. So he uses this word lies. A lot of people are thinking like lying, but that's not what he's saying here. So the propaganda is in where we are in understanding propaganda is understanding the emotion that it will bring out in people. Psychologically, so like without them even realizing it, or even, it's one of those things where if it's always in your face, you don't realize that you're thinking of it. Like when I think of blowing my nose, right? I think of Kleenex. Why do I think of Kleenex? I've only seen commercials on Kleenex, and that's advertising. So when I think of, I need to blow my nose, do you have a Kleenex? That's just one company that creates and has those that supply, and yet that's what I think of. And so that's psychologically, like, has been embedded in my head over time, to just think of that bleach, Clorox bleach, right? We think of Clorox as the company that makes bleach, even though there's different companies that make bleach. And I say we, but I mean me, because I grew up with commercials. You guys don't have as many commercials as you used to. Now you have influencers that do it for us, right, in some way. So we're like, well, if they like it, then we should like it. They bought it. TikTok made them buy it, right? Okay, the art of propaganda lies in understanding the emotions and through that psychological correct form, the way to get the people's attention. Okay, so psychologically, I'm going to put in here a comment psychologically without them really thinking about it. People really thinking about it. Okay. Keep hitting enter. I can't do that. All right. The fact that our bright boys do not understand this merely shows how mentally lazy and conceited they are. Now, that's an interesting statement. Interesting. I wonder why he put that in there. The fact that our bright boys, and he means like the smartest kids, don't understand this is showing how mentally lazy and conceited they are. Very interesting. So he's saying that our young generation is mentally lazy and all about themselves. That's very interesting that he says that. I feel like that is another way of him to say that there needs to be a change. And if people agree with him on the propaganda and people agree with him in these certain areas, then he must be correct in this way of thinking. Interesting. Once understood how necessary it is for propaganda in be adjusted to the broad mass, the following rule results. It is a mistake to make propaganda many-sided, like scientific instruction, for instance. So many-sided, so it has to be one-sided. It has to be one-sided. That's what he's saying. So one-sided idea, not too overly complicated, so you can really understand what's going on. So propaganda has to be one-sided. The receptivity of the great masses is very limited. Receptivity. Let's define receptivity. I wonder what it means, right? So I right-clicked, just so you know, I right-clicked and hit define. You can also hit Control-Shift-Y. Willingness to consider or accept new suggestions and ideas. So receptive, so taking in new ideas. So taking in new ideas, the ability to take in new ideas of the great masses is very limited. So it's hard for people to take new information I don't know if you've ever heard that saying, like, you can't teach old dog new tricks. It's very hard when people are in their understanding of how life works. It is very hard for them to change their mind on how the world works. It's very, very hard because they're set in their way because of their lived experiences. And so I agree with Hitler on this. Like, it's very hard for people to come away with learning new things. It's extremely difficult. So how do you foster that? How do you do that? Is very limited. So their intelligence is small. So he's calling people weak-minded and not very intelligent, but their power of forgetting is enormous. I agree. Like, people will forget. Like, if somebody does something egregious or wrong, it doesn't, unless it is put in our face constantly, people will forget it. That is very true. In consequence, so in other words, another effect of this, of these facts, all effective propaganda must be limited to a very few points and must harp on these in slogans until the last member of the public understands what you want to understand by your slogan. So, like, slogan is Nike, just do it, or I'm trying to think of another slogan that is very popular. That we can. McDonald's has this like, "I'm loving it." Those are so. And it's catchy, right? Or like, there's a jingle. It's catchy, and so it's easy just to have just that limited saying that. That the public can understand, remember, and kind of absorb and internalize. So as soon as you sacrifice this slogan and try to be many-sided. So if you try to give multiple slogans, try to do multiple campaigns with different ideas, the effect will piddle away, which means piddle is like a drip away, like it'll fade away. For the crowd can neither digest nor retain the material offered. So if it's too large of a concept, if it's too large of understanding, if there's too much difficulty in understanding and processing it, then people can't digest it. They can't make sense of it. And if they can't make sense of it, then they're not going to remember it. Retain means to hold on to. In this way, the result is weakened. So I'm going to put retain, hold on to. In this way, the result is weakened and in the end, entirely canceled out. So if you add, what this paragraph is saying is if you add too much information, if you make it too hard, people can't understand it and it's not going to work. Thus, we see that propaganda must follow a simple line, and correspondingly, the basic tactics must be psychologically sound. So we see that it has to be simple. Propaganda has to be simple, and corresponds basic tactics. So it has to have basic tactics that you will have people internalize it, that they will think about it without thinking about it. Okay? All right. So that's pretty deep in understanding. Here is the next source. You guys are going to do that. I am going to pause this video. I'm going to read it. I'm not going to analyze it. I'm going to let you guys analyze it. And then you guys are in charge of answering this question based on these two sources. Why did ordinary people support the Nazi Party? If you can, before you move on to the second video, I highly suggest you go through what I just read and answer this question. Why did Hitler believe that ordinary people were supporting his Nazi Party, his propaganda? So looking back on what I just said, give a couple of points of why, according to Hitler.